He stood in the massive welcome hall of the horizon's edge, surrounded by aliens of every shape and color imaginable. Some had 4 arms, some had no arms at all. A few floated in the air using methods he could not understand. And all of them were staring at the small group of humans who had just arrived. Do-Yun was 28 years old and worked as a xenobiologist. He studied alien life forms. It was a job that usually meant looking at samples under a microscope, not standing in front of hundreds of curious eyes. He had spent 3 years training for this mission, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of being the strange one. Humanity had joined the Galactic Union only 3 years ago. Humans were still new, still exotic, still interesting. And Do-Yun hated being interesting. He tried to hide behind his colleague, a tall woman named Yuna, who seemed much more comfortable with attention. She was smiling and waving at the crowd like this was completely normal. Do-Hyun wanted to disappear. The welcome ceremony began with speeches from various species representatives. Do-Hyun understood maybe half of what was said, even with his translator implant working at full power. He nodded along anyway, trying to look professional and calm. That was when he saw her. She was tall, very tall, at least 7 feet, maybe more. Her skin was a deep blue color that seemed to shift and shimmer under the lights, like the surface of a calm ocean. Her eyes were silver, bright and piercing, and they were looking directly at him. Do-Hyun quickly looked away. He stared at the floor, at the ceiling, at anything that was not the tall blue woman who was now walking toward him. Her name was Vela. He would learn this later. Right now, all he knew was that she was getting closer and closer, and his heart was beating so fast he thought it might escape from his chest. "You are the xenobiologist," she said. Her voice was deep and smooth, like honey mixed with thunder. "Park Do-Yun." He looked up. She was standing right in front of him now, so close that he could feel the coolness of her skin. Apparently, her species ran cold. Humans ran hot. This was a fact he had read somewhere. It was the only thought in his brain that was not pure panic. "Yes," he managed to say. "That is me. I am him. Do-Hyun." "Hello." Vela smiled. Her teeth were slightly pointed, but the smile seemed friendly. "I am Vela. I serve as cultural liaison on this vessel. I help different species understand each other." She tilted her head, studying him like he was a fascinating specimen. "You are very warm." Before Do-Hyun could respond, she reached out and touched his arm. Her fingers were long and elegant, and they felt cool against his skin. She seemed to be testing his temperature. "Remarkable," she said. "Your species generates so much heat. How do you not burn up from the inside?" Do-Hyun's face was definitely burning up right now, but not from any biological reason. We regulate it, with sweat and breathing." He had no idea what he was saying anymore. Vela nodded as if this was the most interesting thing she had ever heard. "Fascinating. And your face changes color when you speak to me. Is this a form of communication?" His face was red. Of course his face was red. He was standing inches away from a beautiful alien woman who had no concept of personal space. And she was asking about his biological functions like he was a lab experiment. "It means I am nervous," he admitted, because lying seemed impossible when those silver eyes were staring into his soul. "Nervous?" Vela moved even closer. "Why would you be nervous? Are you frightened of me?" "No!" The word came out too loud. Several nearby aliens turned to look. Do-Hyun lowered his voice. "No, I am not frightened. I am just not used to this. To people standing so close. To talking with—" He gestured vaguely at all of her. Vela looked down at the space between them, which was approximately 0 inches. "Is this too close? I read that humans enjoy physical proximity during social bonding." "Some humans," Do-Hyun said weakly. "Not all humans. Some humans need more space." "How much more space? Maybe an arm's length?" Vela took one step backward. It helped a little. Do-Hyun could breathe again. "Thank you," he said. "You are very different from the other humans," Vela observed. "The female you arrived with seems very comfortable. She is touching many people right now." She pointed across the room where Yuna was indeed shaking hands and patting shoulders like a professional diplomat. "Yuna is better at this than me," Do-Hyun said. I am better with samples, with microscopes, with things that do not talk back. Vela laughed. It was a musical sound, like bells ringing underwater. But talking is how we learn about each other. How will I understand humans if you hide in your laboratory? You could read reports. I write very detailed reports. Reports are cold. They have no warmth. She smiled again. Unlike you. I think I will enjoy learning about humans from you directly. Park Do-yun. Do-yun did not know what to say to this. Thankfully, he was saved by another alien approaching them. It was a Raytheon, a species that looked somewhat like a large armored insect. The Raytheon said something to Vela in a language Do-yun's translator struggled with, and she turned to respond. This was his chance. I need to go, Do-yun said quickly. My laboratory. Samples. Very urgent. Nice to meet you. He walked away as fast as he could without actually running. He could feel Vela's silver eyes on his back the entire way. When he finally reached the corridor outside the welcome hall, he leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. What had just happened? A beautiful alien woman had approached him. She had touched him. She had called him remarkable and fascinating, and he had responded by sweating and stammering and running away like a frightened child. This was going to be a long mission. He did not know that Vela was still standing in the welcome hall, watching the door he had escaped through. She was smiling, but now there was curiosity in her eyes. Most species in the Galactic Union were direct about attraction. When they liked someone, they said so. When someone liked them back, everyone was happy. It was simple. But this human had fled from her. He had turned red and struggled to speak and then literally run away. Why? Was she offensive to him? Did he find her ugly? No. He had said he was nervous, not disgusted, and she had seen his eyes when he first looked at her. There had been something there, something he was trying to hide. Humans, she decided, were very strange creatures. But Vela had never been one to give up easily. She was Kalori, and her people believed that anything worth having was worth pursuing. This shy, warm, fascinating human had caught her attention, and she was not going to let him hide in his laboratory forever. The chase, as humans apparently said, was on. He woke up early, before most of the crew was awake. He ate his meals in his laboratory surrounded by specimen containers and data screens. He took the longest possible routes through the ship, using maintenance corridors that were mostly empty. He was proud of himself. He was surviving. On the fourth day, Vela found him. He was in the cafeteria, which was a mistake. He had run out of food packets in his lab, and his stomach was making sounds that were probably audible from space. So he had risked a quick trip to get more supplies. He was standing at the food dispenser, trying to figure out which buttons would give him something edible, when a familiar cool presence appeared behind him. Park Do-yun, Vela said. You have been avoiding me. He did not turn around. Maybe if he did not look at her, she would go away. I have been busy, very busy. Important science work. For 3 days, without eating proper meals? She moved to stand beside him, and now he had no choice but to see her. She was wearing a different outfit today, something flowing and silver that matched her eyes. She looked even more beautiful than before. This was very unfair. Science waits for no one, he said weakly. Vela pressed several buttons on the dispenser. A tray appeared with food that actually looked appetizing. She handed it to him. Eat. You are too thin. Humans need more fuel than this. How do you know what humans need? I have been researching. She smiled, and there was something almost predatory in it. I am the cultural liaison, remember? It is my job to understand other species. And right now, I am very interested in understanding yours. Do-yun took the tray because refusing would be rude. He sat down at the nearest table, hoping she would leave. She did not leave. She sat down across from him, watching him eat with those intense silver eyes. I learned something interesting, she said. Humans court each other through prolonged eye contact and shared meals. Do-yun choked on his food. Are you well? Vela leaned forward with concern. Should I strike your back? I read that this helps humans when they are choking. I am fine, he gasped, drinking water quickly. Where did you read that? About the courting? The ship's human cultural database. It has many fascinating facts. She pulled out a small device and showed him the screen. For example, humans express affection through something called hugging, which involves wrapping arms around each other and squeezing. This seems inefficient but charming. Do-Yun stared at the screen. The information was technically correct, but it was missing so much context. Human romance was complicated. It involved time and trust and careful navigation of feelings. You could not just read a few facts and understand it. The database is incomplete, he said carefully. Then you must teach me what is missing. Vela put away the device and leaned closer. I am a very good student. Before Do-Hyun could respond, another alien sat down at their table. It was Tosk, the Rethian engineer he had met briefly during the welcome ceremony. Tosk looked like a giant beetle with kind eyes and a rumbling voice. Human, Tosk said in greeting. I see you have met our Vela. We met at the ceremony, Do-Hyun said, grateful for the interruption. She has been welcoming. Tosk made a sound that might have been laughter. I am sure she has. You should know something, Park Do-Hyun. Vela is Kalori. Her people are known throughout the Union for being, how do I say this politely, aggressively affectionate. Vela did not look embarrassed by this description. In fact, she looked proud. When a Kalori decides they are interested in someone, Tosk continued, they pursue them, directly, persistently, until the other person either accepts or clearly refuses. The Raytheon's many eyes looked at Do-Hyun with something like sympathy. She has clearly decided she is interested in you. Do-Hyun's face turned red again. This was becoming a medical problem. I am interested in learning about humans, Vela corrected smoothly. As cultural liaison, it is my duty. Of course, Tosk said, not sounding convinced at all. Well, human, I wish you luck. You will need it. The Rethian stood up and walked away, leaving Do-Hyun alone with Vela again. Is what Tosk said true? Do-Hyun asked. About your people? About being aggressively affectionate? We prefer to say honestly affectionate. Vela reached across the table and took one of the fruits from his tray. She bit into it slowly, maintaining eye contact the entire time. My people do not believe in hiding our feelings. If we like someone, we tell them. If we want someone, we pursue them. What is the point of games and secrets? Humans are different, Do-Hyun said. We need time. We need space. We need to build trust slowly. Why? It was such a simple question, but he did not have a simple answer. Why were humans so complicated about romance? Why did they guard their hearts so carefully? Why was he specifically so terrible at connecting with others? Because being vulnerable is scary, he finally said. When you tell someone you like them, you give them power over you. They could reject you. They could hurt you. So humans protect themselves by being careful. By waiting, by hiding. Vela was quiet for a moment, considering this. That sounds lonely, she said softly. It can be. And you, Park Do-Hyun? Are you lonely? The question hit him harder than he expected. He thought about his life back on Earth, his small apartment, his research that kept him busy but not fulfilled, the relationships he had never had because he was too shy to start them and too scared to maintain them. Sometimes, he admitted. Vela stood up from the table. For a moment he thought she was going to leave, and he felt a strange mixture of relief and disappointment. But instead she walked around the table and sat down right next to him, not across from him, next to him, close enough that her cool arm brushed against his warm one. Then I will not leave you alone, she said simply. Even if you run away, even if you hide in your laboratory, I will find you and I will sit with you and I will learn to understand your strange, complicated human heart. Why? He asked, echoing her earlier question. Why would you do that for someone you barely know? Vela smiled and, for the first time, it was not playful or predatory, it was gentle. Because I have met many species in my time as liaison, hundreds, maybe thousands, and none of them have ever looked at me the way you did in that welcome hall. None of them have ever turned red simply because I stood near them. None of them have ever run away because my presence made them feel too much. She leaned closer, and he did not pull back this time. You guard your heart carefully, Park Do-Hyun, and my people believe that someone who guards something so carefully must have something very valuable to protect. I want to know what that is. I want to be trusted with it. Doyun did not know what to say. No one had ever spoken to him like this before. No one had ever seen his shyness as something interesting rather than something broken. I cannot promise anything, he said quietly. I do not know how to do this, whatever this is. Then we will learn together. Vela stood up and offered him her hand. Come, I want to see your laboratory. I want to see the place where you hide from the universe. He hesitated for only a moment before taking her hand. Her skin was cool against his, but somehow the touch made him feel warm inside. Maybe, he thought, this would not be so bad after all. She appeared everywhere, in his laboratory, asking questions about the samples he was studying, in the corridors, walking beside him even when she was going somewhere else entirely, in the observation deck at night, sitting with him in comfortable silence while they watched the stars go by. He still turned red when she got too close. He still stammered when she said something that caught him off guard, but he was starting to look forward to her appearances instead of dreading them. This particular day, he was working in the Botanical Research Bay. It was his favorite place on the ship, a large room filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. The air was warm and humid, and everything glowed with soft bioluminescent light. He was examining a flower from Vela's homeworld, a beautiful thing with petals that shifted through every shade of blue. It reminded him of her skin. That one is called a memory bloom, Vela said from behind him. He did not jump this time. He was getting better at sensing when she was near. Why is it called that? Because its scent triggers memories. Happy ones, usually. My people plant them at weddings and births and celebrations. She moved to stand beside him, looking at the flower with soft eyes. My mother had a garden full of them. When I was small, I would play among them and dream of adventures in space. And now you are here, having adventures. Yes, although I never dreamed I would meet a creature as interesting as you. She turned to look at him, and her silver eyes were bright in the dim light. Park Do-yun, I have a question. He braced himself. Her questions were always dangerous. Why do you keep avoiding me? He frowned. I am not avoiding you. I am right here. I have been spending time with you every day. Yes, but you keep distance between us. You pull away when I get close. You change the subject when I try to learn more about you personally. She stepped closer, and he instinctively stepped back. Like that. Why do you do that? Do-yun's back hit the edge of a plant container. He had nowhere else to go. I told you, humans need space. We move slowly. It has been 2 weeks. How much slower can we move? Vela stepped closer again. Now they were inches apart, just like that first meeting in the welcome hall. I have been patient. I have given you time. I have done everything your cultural database suggested, but you are still hiding from me. I am not hiding. I am just what? He could not think of an answer. The truth was, he did not know what he was doing. Part of him wanted to close the distance between them. Part of him was terrified of what would happen if he did. He was trapped between wanting and fearing, and he had no idea which feeling would win. Am I offensive to you? Vela asked, and for the first time she sounded uncertain. My appearance? My behavior? I know Kalori are different from humans. Maybe I am too strange for you. No, he said immediately. No, that is not it at all. Then what? Help me understand, Do-yun, because I have tried everything I know, and nothing works. I feel like I am chasing someone who does not want to be caught. The pain in her voice made something twist in his chest. She had been so confident, so sure of herself since the moment they met. Seeing her doubt herself because of him felt wrong. You are beautiful, he said before he could stop himself. The words came out quiet but clear. Vela's eyes widened. What? Oh no, he had said it. He could not take it back now. His face was burning, but he forced himself to continue. You are beautiful, Vela, and kind, and interesting. And every time you come near me, my heart beats so fast that I cannot think properly. I am not running away because I do not like you. I am running away because I like you too much, and I do not know what to do with that feeling. She stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled, and it was like watching a sunrise. Stop being shy, human, she said, and pulled him toward herself. He expected a kiss. He had seen enough human movies to know how these moments were supposed to go. But what she did was different. She pressed her forehead against his and held him there, her hands gentle on his shoulders. "Breathe with me," she whispered. He tried, but his breath was shaky and uneven. She did not seem to mind. She just held him there, forehead to forehead, sharing air in the warm glow of the alien plants. Something passed between them. He could not explain what it was. A warmth that was not just physical, a connection that went deeper than words. He felt like she was seeing parts of him that he had never shown anyone. And instead of being scared, he felt relieved. After what felt like hours, she pulled back. Her silver eyes were shining. "There," she said softly. "Now we are courting properly." "What was that?" His voice came out hoarse. "A Kaolori bonding gesture. It is how my people share their hearts with each other. We believe that breath is life, and sharing breath is sharing life." She touched his cheek gently. "I have wanted to do that since the moment I met you." "Why did you wait?" "Because I was trying to respect your human ways. But watching you say I was beautiful, watching you admit your feelings, even though you were scared." She shook her head slowly. "I could not hold back anymore." Doyun reached up and touched her hand on his cheek. Her skin was cool, but the gesture made him feel warm all over. "I am still scared," he admitted. "I know. I still do not know how to do this, how to be in a relationship, how to be with someone who is so different from me. I know that too. But," he took a deep breath, "I want to try, if you are willing to be patient with me." Vela laughed, and the sound echoed through the botanical bay like music. "I have been chasing you for 2 weeks. I think I have proven that I am patient." She took his hand and led him to a bench surrounded by glowing flowers. They sat down together, closer than he would have allowed before. He did not pull away. "Tell me about yourself," she said. "Your real self, not the scientist who hides behind data and reports. Tell me about the boy from Earth who dreams of stars." So he did. He told her about growing up in a small apartment with his parents and his younger brother Junho. He told her about being the quiet child who preferred books to parties, microscopes to sports. He told her about the first time he saw an alien vessel land on Earth and how it changed everything he thought he knew about the universe. And she listened. She asked questions. She laughed at his funny stories and grew quiet during his sad ones. She did not judge him or try to fix him. She just accepted him, exactly as he was. When they finally left the botanical bay, hours later, something had shifted between them. He was still nervous. He was still unsure. But for the first time in his life, he felt like someone truly saw him. And maybe he thought that was what love was supposed to feel like. Vela, the confident and beautiful Kaolori liaison, had chosen the shy human scientist as her courting partner. By the end of the week, everyone on the horizon's edge seemed to know about it. Dokyun discovered this when he walked into the cafeteria, and every alien in the room turned to stare at him. "Good morning," he said awkwardly, then grabbed his food and practically ran back to his laboratory. But hiding did not help. Throughout the day, various crew members found excuses to visit him. A Rethian engineer needed to check the ventilation system in his lab, which had worked perfectly fine for months. A small furry creature from a species he did not recognize wanted to ask about his microscope, then spent 20 minutes asking about human romance instead. Even Captain Zhen, an ancient reptilian being who rarely spoke to anyone, stopped by to offer congratulations in a voice like grinding stones. "You have created quite the sensation," Yuna told him during their weekly meeting. She looked amused. "The whole ship is talking about you and Vela." "I noticed." Doyun rubbed his temples. "Why do they care so much?" "Because humans are still new here. We are still mysterious and exotic. And you have just become the first human to enter a formal courting arrangement with another species." Yuna grinned. "You are basically a celebrity now." "I do not want to be a celebrity. I want to study my samples in peace." "Too late for that." She patted his shoulder. "Look on the bright side. This is actually great for human relations with the Union. You are proving that we can form genuine connections with other species. You are an ambassador now." "I did not sign up to be an ambassador. And yet here you are." Yuna stood up to leave. "Enjoy your fame, Doyun. You have earned it." Over the next few weeks, Do-yun reluctantly accepted his new role. Aliens kept approaching him with questions about human mating customs, emotional bonding, and physical affection. He answered as honestly as he could, trying to explain the complexity of human relationships without making them sound completely impossible. So humans do not simply declare their interest and begin courting? A Vitharian diplomat asked him. Vitharians were tall, crystalline beings who communicated partly through musical tones. They must go through a period of uncertainty first. It is called dating, Do-yun explained. Two people spend time together, learning about each other, deciding if they are compatible. But how do you know when the dating period ends and the courting begins? That is complicated, different for everyone. Some people date for weeks, some for years. Some never make it to the courting stage at all. The Vitharian's crystals hummed with confusion. This sounds very inefficient. It is, but it is also. He thought about Vela, about the slow process of opening up to her, about how much deeper their connection felt because it had been earned through patience. It is also meaningful. The time we spend being uncertain makes the certainty more valuable when it finally comes. The Vitharian considered this, then nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in your species' approach. You value what you work for. These conversations became regular occurrences. Do-hyun found himself becoming something of an expert on human romance, which was ironic considering how terrible he had always been at it personally. But explaining things to curious aliens was different from actually doing them. It was like writing a research paper instead of conducting the experiment. Meanwhile, his relationship with Vela continued to grow. She taught him about Kalori culture. She explained their communal family structures, where children were raised by entire communities rather than individual parents. She told him about their spiritual beliefs, which centered on the idea that all conscious beings were connected through a great web of energy that spanned the universe. We believe that when you meet someone who makes your heart sing, it is because your energy recognized theirs across the void, she said one evening. They were sitting in the observation deck watching a distant nebula paint the darkness with purple and gold. We call it soul resonance. That sounds beautiful, Do-hyun said. Do you believe it really happens? Vela turned to look at him. I believe it happened to me. The moment I saw you in that welcome hall, something inside me knew. I cannot explain it logically. I am not sure I want to. He reached for her hand. He did this without thinking now, which still surprised him. A month ago, he could not even stand close to her without panicking. Now, touching her felt natural, necessary, like breathing. Tell me something I do not know about you, she said. Something you have never told anyone. He thought about it. He had already shared so much with her over these weeks. His childhood, his fears, his dreams. What was left? When I was young, he said slowly, I used to imagine that aliens would come to Earth and take me away. Not in a scary way, in a rescue way. I felt so out of place with other humans, so awkward and wrong, that I thought maybe I belonged somewhere else. Somewhere in the stars. Vela squeezed his hand. And now you are here. In the stars. Yes. And I still feel awkward and wrong most of the time. He smiled sadly. I thought being in space would fix me, but I am still the same person I was on Earth. You are not wrong, Do-hyun. Her voice was firm. You are different. There is a difference. Your people have a saying, yes? About fitting in? Square peg in a round hole. Yes, but the solution is not to force the square peg into the round hole. The solution is to find a square hole. She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Maybe you were never meant to fit perfectly with other humans. Maybe you were meant to find your place somewhere else. With someone else. He thought about this as they watched the nebula slowly drift across the stars. He thought about all the years he had spent trying to be normal, trying to fit in, trying to make himself smaller and quieter and more acceptable. And he thought about how, for the first time in his life, someone loved him, not despite his awkwardness, but because of it. Vela, he said quietly. Yes? Thank you for being patient with me, for seeing something in me worth pursuing. She lifted her head to look at him. Her silver eyes reflected the distant stars. Thank you for letting yourself be caught, she replied. I know it was not easy for you, But I promise, Do-hyun, I will spend the rest of our time together making sure you never regret it. She pressed her forehead against his, and they breathed together, and the universe seemed very small and very large all at once. Somewhere on Earth, Do-hyun thought, there was a lonely boy who dreamed of stars and love and belonging. That boy had no idea that his dreams would come true. He sat up in his bed, confused and still half asleep. The alarm was not the normal kind that meant drills or minor problems. It was the red alarm, the dangerous one. He had only heard it once before, during a training simulation. He pulled on his clothes and ran toward the command center, along with dozens of other crew members who looked just as worried as he felt. The corridors were full of hurried footsteps and frightened whispers. When he arrived at the command center, Captain Jen was standing before the main viewing screen. The ancient reptilian's scales had gone pale, which Do-hyun knew was a sign of deep concern. "We have received a distress signal," Captain Jen announced, his grinding voice heavy with tension. "A Kalari colony ship, the Starward Hope, has been attacked by Vrekan raiders approximately 4 hours from our current position." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vrekan raiders were dangerous, a hostile species that existed outside the Galactic Union and preyed on vulnerable vessels. They took cargo, sometimes prisoners, and left destruction behind them. "The colony ship carries 300 passengers," Captain Jen continued, "mostly families traveling to establish a new settlement. They have limited weapons and no military escort." Do-hyun felt his stomach drop. A colony ship. Families. Children. Then he saw Vela. She was standing at the front of the crowd, her blue skin pale and her silver eyes wide with an emotion he had never seen in her before. Fear. Pure, uncontrolled fear. He pushed through the crowd to reach her side. "Vela? What is wrong?" "My sister." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "My younger sister, Nira. She is on that ship. She is traveling to the new colony to work as a teacher." The world seemed to tilt beneath Do-hyun's feet. Vela's sister, the person she talked about most, the one she loved more than anyone, on a ship being attacked by raiders. "We are mobilizing a rescue team," Captain Jen said. "Volunteers only. This will be dangerous. The Vrekans are ruthless and well-armed." Vela stepped forward immediately. "I volunteer." Captain Jen looked at her with something like sadness in his ancient eyes. "Vela, you are not a soldier. You are a cultural liaison." "My sister is on that ship." Her voice cracked but remained strong. "I am going, Captain, with or without permission." There was a long pause. Then Captain Jen nodded slowly. "Very well. Who else?" Several crew members stepped forward. Tosk, the Rethian engineer, a pair of tall gray beings who served as security officers. A small team, maybe 10 people total. Do-hyun watched them volunteer, his heart pounding. He was not a soldier. He was not brave. He was a scientist who studied things under microscopes. He had no business on a rescue mission against armed raiders. But Vela was going, and the thought of her facing danger alone, the thought of losing her before he had truly found her, was more terrifying than any alien raiders. He stepped forward. "I volunteer," he said, and his voice only shook a little. Vela turned to look at him. "Do-hyun, no, you cannot. This is too dangerous." "I know. You have no training, no weapons experience. You could die." "I know that too." She grabbed his arms, her cool fingers digging into his skin. "Why? Why would you risk yourself for this? For people you have never met?" He looked into her silver eyes, those eyes that had seen through him from the very first moment. "Because your family is in danger," he said simply, "and you are my family now. I cannot let you go alone." Something shifted in her expression. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, something soft and fierce all at once. She pulled him close and pressed her forehead against his. They breathed together, quick and unsteady, drawing strength from each other. "You are insane," she whispered. "All humans are insane." "Probably," he agreed. The rescue shuttle launched within the hour. Do-hyun sat in a corner, watching the others prepare their weapons and check their equipment. He had been given a basic plasma pistol and a crash course in how to use it. Point at the enemy, press the trigger. Do not point at friends. Simple in theory. His hands were shaking. He hid them in his lap so the others would not see. Vela sat beside him, dressed in combat armor that made her look like a warrior goddess from an ancient story. She had not spoken much since they boarded. Her eyes were fixed on the empty space ahead, seeing something far away. "Tell me about Nira," Do-Yun said quietly. He thought it might help to keep her focused on hope instead of fear. Vela blinked and turned to look at him. She is young, only by Kalori standards, 20 cycles, which is maybe 18 in human years. She has always been the brave one, the adventurous one. When I joined the diplomatic corps, she decided she wanted to see the stars too. But she wanted to help build things, not just talk about them, so she trained as a teacher. She sounds wonderful. She is the best person I know. Vela's voice caught. If something happens to her, we will save her. Do-Yun took her hand. We will save all of them. You cannot promise that. No, but I can promise that I will do everything possible to make it true. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she leaned over and kissed his cheek, soft and quick. Thank you, she said, for being here, for being brave, even when you are scared. I am extremely scared, he admitted. My hands have not stopped shaking since we left. I know, I can feel them. She squeezed his trembling fingers. But you are here anyway. That is what bravery means, Do-Hyun, not the absence of fear. The presence of action despite it. The shuttle shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the viewport, Do-Hyun could see the colony ship in the distance. It was large and round, designed for comfort rather than speed. And surrounding it like wolves around wounded prey were 3 Vrekin raider ships, small and sharp and deadly. All personnel, prepare for boarding, the pilot announced. We are going in hot. Vela stood up and pulled Do-Hyun to his feet. Her silver eyes were hard now, all the softness burned away by determination. Stay close to me, she said. Do what I do. When I say run, you run. When I say hide, you hide. Understand? He nodded, not trusting his voice. Good. She touched his face gently, just for a moment. And Do-Hyun, thank you for being the kind of human who runs toward danger for the people he loves. I think that might be the most remarkable thing about your species. Then the shuttle doors opened and they charged into the fire. Do-Hyun followed Vela through corridors filled with debris and frightened passengers. The Vrekin raiders had already breached the hull in several places, and their soldiers were everywhere. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and too many eyes, and they moved with a speed that seemed impossible. The rescue team split into smaller groups. Vela led Do-Hyun and 2 security officers toward the passenger section, where family quarters were located, where Nira would be. They moved quickly but carefully, avoiding the main corridors where fighting was heaviest. Vela seemed to know exactly where she was going, guided by some combination of ship blueprints and desperate hope. This way, she whispered, pulling them into a side passage. The family quarters are just ahead. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a group of Vrekin soldiers. There were 5 of them, and they reacted immediately, raising their weapons with practiced efficiency. What happened next was chaos. The security officers engaged the Vrekins directly, their weapons firing bright pulses of energy. Vela grabbed Do-Hyun and pulled him behind cover, then added her own fire to the fight. She shot with surprising accuracy for someone who claimed to be just a cultural liaison. Do-Hyun fumbled with his pistol. He had never fired a weapon in his life. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely hold it steady. One of the security officers went down, hit by a Vrekin blast. Then the second. Suddenly it was just Vela against 5 enemies, and she was running out of places to hide. A Vrekin soldier flanked around their position, appearing behind them. Do-Hyun saw it raising its weapon, aiming at Vela's back. He did not think. He just acted. He threw himself between Vela and the soldier, firing his pistol wildly. More by luck than skill, one of his shots hit the Vrekin's weapon, knocking it aside. The soldier stumbled, surprised, and that moment of hesitation was enough. Vela spun and fired, taking down the flanking soldier. Then she finished off the remaining enemies with quick, precise shots. When the smoke cleared, they were alone in the corridor. Vela was breathing hard, and there was blood on her arm where a blast had grazed her. You saved me, she said, staring at Do-Hyun. You jumped in front of a weapon for me. I did not really think about it. He looked at his pistol in disbelief. He had actually fired it. He had actually hit something. Is your arm okay? It is nothing. She grabbed his face with both hands and kissed him, hard and fast. You beautiful, stupid, brave human. Do not ever do that again. I cannot promise that. She laughed, which was strange given the circumstances. No, I suppose you cannot. Come, we need to find Nira. They found the family quarters a few minutes later. The area had been secured by the passengers themselves, who had barricaded the doors and armed themselves with whatever they could find. When they saw Vela, relief flooded their faces. Vela! A young Kalori woman pushed through the crowd and threw herself into Vela's arms. She was smaller than Vela, with lighter blue skin and the same silver eyes. Nira. You are safe, Vela breathed, holding her sister tightly. When I heard about the attack, I thought, I am fine. We are all fine thanks to you. Nira pulled back and looked at Do-hyun curiously. Who is this? This is Do-hyun. He is... Vela paused, searching for the right word. He is mine. Nira's eyes widened. The human? The one you told me about in your messages? The shy scientist? He is not so shy anymore. Vela looked at him with an expression that made his heart skip. He just saved my life. But there was no time for reunions. The Wreck-It Raiders were still aboard, and the rescue team was badly outnumbered. They needed to escape, but the main docking ports were blocked by enemy soldiers. Do-hyun looked around the room, his scientist brain finally kicking into gear. There had to be another way. He thought about the ship's systems, about what he knew of colony vessel design, about the Wreck-It soldiers and their biology. The Wreck-Its. He remembered reading about them during his Union orientation. They had enhanced sensory organs that gave them excellent tracking abilities in low-light conditions. But that same enhancement made them vulnerable to certain stimuli. The atmospheric processors, he said suddenly. Where are they? Everyone looked at him in confusion. Vela frowned. The atmospheric processors? Why? Because I have an idea. He turned to the nearest terminal and started pulling up ship schematics. The Wreck-Its have highly developed olfactory and light-sensitive organs. If I can trigger a cascade reaction in the processors, I can flood the corridors with a compound that will overwhelm their senses. It would be harmless to most species, but to Wreck-Its, it would blind and disorient them, Vela finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. Can you do it? I think so. I need access to the main environmental control system in about 10 minutes. You have 5. She grabbed a weapon from one of the fallen security officers. Nira, stay with the others. Do-hyun, show me where to go. They moved through the ship like ghosts, avoiding combat whenever possible. Do-hyun led them to the environmental control center, a small room filled with humming machinery and blinking lights. He worked fast, his fingers flying over the controls. This was his world, the world of data and reactions and carefully controlled variables. Here he was not awkward or scared. Here, he was confident. Done, he said after exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. I have programmed a delayed release throughout the main corridors. In 2 minutes, every Wreck-It on this ship is going to have a very bad day. They retreated to a safe position and waited. The compound released silently, invisibly, spreading through the ventilation system like a ghost. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Wreck-It soldiers started stumbling out of corridors, clutching their faces, screaming in languages Do-hyun did not understand. They were completely disoriented, unable to see or smell or navigate. Some crashed into walls. Others collapsed entirely. The rescue team and the passengers used the chaos to escape. They gathered everyone who could move and headed for the shuttle bay, stepping over fallen Wreck-Its who were too overwhelmed to resist. Within 20 minutes, they had evacuated the entire passenger section. 300 people, including families and children, loading onto shuttles and fleeing to safety. On the shuttle back to the horizon's edge, Tosk, the Rathian engineer, looked at Do-hyun with something like awe. You saved them, he said. All of them. With chemistry. Xenobiology, Do-hyun corrected quietly. I study how different species work. It seemed useful to finally apply that knowledge to something practical. Practical? Tosk made that rumbling laugh sound. Humans. You are all insane. No, Vela said, holding Do-hyun's hand tightly. Her sister Nira was sleeping against her shoulder, exhausted but safe. They are just full of surprises. She looked at Do-Yun with eyes that held wonder and pride and something deeper than either. You were magnificent, she whispered. My shy, brilliant, beautiful human. Do-Yun felt his face turn red, even now. Some things apparently never changed. But as he looked around the shuttle at the people he had helped save, at the woman who loved him, at the life he had somehow stumbled into, he thought that maybe some changes were worth all the fear and uncertainty it took to get there. Do-Yun stood in front of a mirror in his quarters, trying to adjust the ceremonial robe he had been given. It was Kaylori formal wear, designed for bodies taller and longer than his. He looked, he thought, like a child wearing his parents' clothes. You look wonderful, Yuna said from behind him. She was dressed in human formal attire, a neat uniform that represented Earth's diplomatic corps. Stop fussing with it. It does not fit properly. It fits perfectly. Vela had it specially made for you. Yuna walked over and straightened his collar. Are you nervous? Extremely. Good. That means it matters. She stepped back and looked at him with something like pride. You have come a long way, Do-Hyun. When we first arrived on the ship, you could barely talk to anyone without running away. Now you are about to complete a formal bonding ceremony with an alien. When you say it like that, it sounds impossible. Most good things do until they happen. She smiled. Your brother sent a message, by the way. He wanted me to tell you that your parents are very confused but very happy, and they expect you to bring Vela home for a visit as soon as possible. Do-Yun laughed nervously. He had sent a message to his family 3 months ago, trying to explain his relationship with Vela. It had been the most difficult thing he had ever written. How do you tell traditional parents that you are in love with a 7-foot-tall blue alien who had essentially chased you until you surrendered? But they had surprised him. After the initial shock, they had sent back a video message full of questions and enthusiasm. His mother wanted to know what kind of food Vela liked. His father wanted to discuss interspecies diplomacy. And his younger brother Junho had simply laughed and said it was about time Do-Yun found someone willing to put up with him. The door chimed and Tosk entered. The Raytheon engineer was wearing something that sparkled, which Do-Hyun assumed was formal wear for his species. It is time, Tosk said. The ceremony is ready. Do-Hyun took a deep breath, then another. His hands were shaking again, just like they had on the rescue shuttle 6 months ago. But this time, the fear was mixed with excitement. He followed Tosk through the corridors of the horizon's edge. They had become familiar over these months, comfortable, like paths through a home he had never expected to have. Crew members nodded at him as he passed, some offering words of encouragement in languages his translator struggled to convert. The ceremony was being held in the observation deck, the same place where he and Vela had spent so many evenings watching the stars. It had been transformed for the occasion, decorated with flowers from a dozen different worlds, including the memory blooms from Vela's homeworld. The room was full of people, aliens of every species serving on the ship, plus a handful of humans from the diplomatic team. Captain Jen stood at the front, ready to officiate, and there, waiting for him at the center of it all, was Vela. She was breathtaking. Her blue skin seemed to glow in the soft light, and she wore a flowing gown of silver that matched her eyes. Her hair was arranged in an elaborate style decorated with tiny glowing crystals. She looked like something out of a dream, something too beautiful and perfect to be real. And she was looking at him like he was the most precious thing in the universe. Do-Yun walked toward her, and somehow his feet did not fail him. He stood before her, close enough to feel the coolness of her presence. And he realized that his hands had stopped shaking. You came, she whispered, her voice teasing. I was worried you might run away. I considered it, he admitted. Old habits. And yet here you are. Here I am. Captain Jen began speaking, reciting the traditional Kaylori words of bonding. Do-Hyun listened without really hearing, too focused on Vela's face, on the love and joy he saw there. When it was time for the vows, Vela went first. Her words were in Kaylori, but his translator converted them perfectly. I choose you, Park Do-Hyun of Earth. I choose your warmth and your kindness. I choose your brilliant mind and your gentle heart. I choose your fear and your courage. I choose every part of you, exactly as you are. And I promise to spend my life helping you see yourself the way I see you. Beautiful, worthy, loved. Do-hyun's eyes were burning. He blinked rapidly, trying not to cry in front of several hundred aliens. His turn. He had prepared something, had practiced it for weeks. But standing here, looking at her, all his careful words disappeared. I am not good at this, he said honestly. I have never been good at speaking about feelings. For most of my life, I believed I would be alone, because I did not know how to let anyone close enough to love me. He took her hands in his. Her skin was cool, but the touch warmed him from the inside out. Then you found me. You saw through every wall I had built, every defense I had created, and you refused to let me hide. You chased me until I stopped running. You loved me until I believed I deserved to be loved. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I do not have beautiful words or perfect promises. I only have myself, with all my fears and flaws and awkwardness. But I give that self to you, Vela, completely, forever, and I promise that every day I will try to be worthy of the gift you have given me. Vela was crying now, silver tears running down her blue cheeks. She pulled him forward and pressed her forehead against his, sharing breath the Kalori way. There, she whispered against his lips. Now we are bonded properly. Then she kissed him, human style, in front of everyone. The crowd erupted in confused but enthusiastic applause. Most of them did not know what a human kiss meant, but it seemed significant, and they were happy to celebrate anyway. Later, after the ceremony and the celebration and the hundreds of congratulations from beings he could barely name, Do-hyun and Vela stood alone in the observation deck. The party had moved elsewhere, giving them privacy to watch the stars together. So, Vela said, leaning against him, how does it feel to be officially bonded to an alien? Strange. Good. Like waking up from a dream and realizing it was real. He wrapped his arm around her waist. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for being worth the patience. She looked up at him with those silver eyes. What happens now? I do not know. More adventures, probably. More diplomatic missions. Maybe eventually a visit to Earth so you can meet my family. Your mother will try to feed me. Yes, it is how humans show love. You will need to eat a lot. Vela laughed, and the sound was still the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. Later that night, Do-hyun sat down to write a message home. He addressed it to his brother Junho, knowing it would be shared with the whole family. You always said I would never find someone who understood me, he wrote. Turns out I just needed to look a few thousand light years from home. She is tall, blue, and absolutely terrifying when she is angry. I have never been happier. He paused, thinking about everything that had happened since he first stepped onto the horizon's edge. The fear and the wonder and the slow, terrifying process of letting someone into his heart. I used to think being shy was a weakness, he continued. I used to hate myself for being so scared of connection. But I learned something out here in the stars. The right person will not ask you to change who you are. They will love you because of who you are, including the scared parts. He looked across the room at Vela, who was reading something on her tablet and humming quietly to herself. His wife, his partner, his home. So do not give up, Junho. Do not settle for someone who wants to fix you. Wait for someone who looks at you and sees someone worth chasing. Someone worth the patience, someone worth loving exactly as they are. He smiled and added one final line. And if that someone happens to be a 7-foot-tall alien who drags you toward her and tells you to stop being shy, well, that is just a bonus. He sent the message, then crossed the room to join his wife among the stars. The shy boy from Earth had finally found where he belonged, and he was never running away again.